In an empire where nature is contagion and danger approaches from the sea, this murder could wipe out their best defenses. Howdy, and welcome to LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. It is a very rainy day today, and I decided I'd like to start a new eARC that I'm very excited about. The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I've never read from Robert Jackson Bennett before, although there are two other series from him that I know of that people really love. One's fantasy and one's science fiction. The first is the Foundryside trilogy, and the second is the City of Stairs series. I thought a good entry point would be this, hopefully, I think, standalone fantasy, especially because it combines some of my favorite tropes. This is introduced to us as a Watson-and-Holmes-style murder investigation in a unique fantasy world that is also funny. So we'll see how all of that combines. I believe from reading the back cover that it's told from the Watson perspective. An Imperial officer lies dead with a tree growing out of his chest on the fringes of the Empire, where things get a little bit weird sometimes with magic, but that's still really creepy and impossible. So they recruit Anna DeLabra, the Holmes-style character, who is very eccentric, to investigate the murder. It's said, that she never takes off her blindfold and she can solve complicated cases without ever having to leave her room. She is assigned a new assistant, Dennis Cole, and this is their first case working together. I'm very intrigued by that premise. I've not actually read a lot of Sherlock Holmes. I want to be able to theoretically maybe figure it out as we go. But I haven't started it yet. I'm going to get started and check in with you periodically as I read. I'm going to keep it non-spoiler, general thoughts and feelings and things like that. So don't worry. Hello. I am about a third of the way through the book now, so it's time for an update. First important thing is it is not a standalone. It is the first in a series. As soon as I started reading that, got into the cover page, I was like, okay, not a standalone, but that's all right. I've actually already pre-ordered myself a physical copy because there's a pre-order sale going on right now at Barnes & Noble. So far, I enjoy this book so much that I want my own copy of it. So it's living up to my expectations. I think what I'm enjoying the most right now is the character Din, the inspector's assistant through which the story is being told. It's his first murder investigation, and the inspector is really quite odd, but in a really interesting, fresh, different way. Layered on top of that is the world building in this fantasy world. The fantasy elements are extremely important to this plot. It's not just window dressing and then, a fantasy story dropped into it. It's really integral, I think, to what is going on. Woven into that is how the author is giving us those pieces of information without it being info dumpy. And going back to really enjoying Din so far, just how Din is observing the world and interacting with the other people involved in this investigation. I've been enjoying, especially the dialogue, but I do have to say I very much also enjoy the main investigator character so far. Well, at a certain point, I just had to finish the book without coming in to do any more updates, because since the crux of it is a murder investigation, as the investigation is ramping up, it really didn't feel appropriate to come talk about where the characters were going and what they were doing. But I do feel like I have a lot to say about this book. I want to keep it non-spoilery, and the main thing I want to say is I've seen in many places that this book is presented as Sherlock Holmes fantasy twist, which is true, but also I really don't think it gives it justice, because the denseness of the fantasy, nay, science fiction, let's just call it speculative, world building. It is, like I said, dense, it's fascinating, it's imaginative, it's just really, really cool. as a person who's really into biology, I loved how that there is this certain outward threat that impacts this society, not only on a macro, like a big thing could come destroy your cities scale, but they are very concerned about contagion, and it colors everything about the story. It colors how this empire is built and why the characters are doing what they're doing. And so I just want to say, if you're not really into murder mysteries or something that sounds Sherlock Holmes-esque, then I would say you should still read this novel if you enjoy speculative fiction, because those elements in the story are worth exploring. On the other hand, you have the Sherlock Holmes murder mystery, which promises quirky, interesting, unique characters, and that is delivered too. Not in the stereotypical way you think of Sherlock Holmes and Watson. Each of them carries their own investigative weight. They definitely have two different jobs. They work hand in hand to solve the mystery. And again, the world building aspect for how that is done really adds so much flavor and depth to this story that I don't want to get too much into what all of that is, just because it's fun to explore that and learn that as the story unfolds. I just want to emphasize, it's not just a murder mystery wrapped up in fantasy wrapping paper. It really has a great speculative backbone to the story. And with the characters, aside from them being unique, there's really great banter. One of them is kind of crude, and just almost every time that they open their mouth, I kind of snorted, laughed a little bit, just because of the way this character interacted with other characters. And I found the investigation itself satisfying. This is the first book in a series. I don't know how long it's going to be. The Leviathan series, I believe. And I feel like it left off at a really great point. I'm excited not only to go with these characters on whatever their path is next, but also to continue exploring this world. It doesn't feel like it's going to be really focal, where we stay very isolated and we just solve mysteries serially. There does feel like there is an overarching plot to this whole series. I have a very, very favorable impression of this novel, if you can't tell. I really enjoyed it. Once I got to the halfway point, I basically didn't want to stop, so I read it fairly quickly. This was my first Robert Jackson Bennett. It's made me want to put some of his backlist books higher up on my list to check out. I think that's all I can really get into without getting into spoiler territory, so I think I'll stop there. But I would just highly recommend this one. I think this is going to be a great new release, and I hope that this vlog/review has made you interested in picking it up. If you are going to do that, let me know down below, or once you read it, if you've already read it, let me know what you thought. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and being here, and for all of the conversations we have down in the comments about books. And as always, don't forget to support your local library. Thanks.